Snowdrops, apple blossoms, lily of the valley, and more. Today we are drawing flowers because that's what we do around here. Hey friends, welcome back. My name is Shayda, and today we're going to do some floral illustration. It's been a minute since we've done any floral drawing, so let's get to it. I am using a mechanical pencil. You'll want to grab a pencil and eraser, as well as some paper. Now I've got this tiny little pad that I use quite often. I'll show you what it looks like. It's from Strathmore, and it says actually for colored pencil. And I just love the way the fine liners perform on this paper. It's got just the right amount of tooth and texture, and it's heavy. And then speaking of fine liners, you'll need a pen, something like a Pigma Micron. And I'm using the 03 nib, and all of these supplies are linked below in the description. And just a reminder that channel patrons get access to weekly bonus content. This week I have some floral illustration worksheets to help you out, so head over there after the tutorial. Okay, let's start with our first flower, the Delphinium. I just do a line, like a little curving line for the stem. And then we do these tiny little oval shapes, give them a little stem or no stem at all, because the Delphinium kind of ends in all these little buds. And below those, along the length of the stem, we're going to draw a whole grouping of little blossoms. I'm just doing these tiny, simple little florals. They are like a 5-petal flower. If you want to draw them as if they're opening up, you can do 3 petals with a very short, shallow petal in front. So just this messy grouping of florals, because the Delphinium is made up of these buds at the top and then this big burst of tiny blossoms. So sketch it out in pencil. If you need help, do an X to help kind of guide you with where those 5 petals go, and then go over that in pencil. And then when you have your burst of flowers all along that stem looking the way you like, I might just tuck a few more in there, then you can start going over it in pen. So I'm taking my fine liner, that's the Pigma Micron. I'm using the 03 nib for all of my illustrations today. And we're just doing these simple little 5-petal flowers, or they are 3 petals with that very short petal in front. And for the stamen, you can see I've just done a little grouping of circles or dots, so very loose. I'm all about simplifying flowers like a complicated one, like a Delphinium, and breaking it down so that you can draw it, and it's simple but pretty. Let's get rid of all of our pencil marks and our eraser dust, and now you can see what you've drawn without all that messy, smudgy pencil. And at this point, I like to add just a little bit of line shading, and this is totally optional. You don't have to do that, but I'm adding just some lines on some of the buds and some extra detail around the stamen. Okay, the next flower we're going to draw is a snowdrop. So you start with the sepal, which is this rounded triangle, and then right under that you're doing these 3 sort of pointed oval shaped petals. So sepal and then 3 overlapping petals. Work it out in pencil so you're happy with the shape. And then you have these funny curving stems. They curve up like a cane above the flower and then drop down. And then from there you can add some simple little leaves. Don't get too complicated. Let's go over it in pen so you can really see. You do that bell shape, that rounded triangle, and then these 3 pointed oval or teardrop shaped petals right below that bell-shaped sepal. And then this cane-shaped stem, you kind of go up and then back down. So you want this long, thin, curving stem that is much higher than the little blossom, and the blossom looks like it's drooping down. And of course, that's why I call it a little snowdrop, because it's this bright white flower. I'm thickening the stems just slightly, and that'll also make those white petals really pop. And then I'm going to darken the sepal. And to do that, I'm coloring in from the edges, and I'm leaving just a little highlight in the middle. So color in from the edges first and leave a little bit of a lighter spot right in the middle there. And then if you like, you can add just a hint of line shading on those petals, but don't overdo it because you want them to look bright white. Next, we'll do a little fern, the Maidenhair Fern. So start with a line for the stem. And then we do these little leaves, and they're these shaggy, funny little shapes. You can almost do a heart shape or a circle, and you give it a raggedy edge. And then you continue drawing more branches, and each branch has a number of these leaves. So you can easily make it any size you like. Let's go over it in pen so you can really see. You start with the stem in the middle, and then all these little raggedy, shaggedy leaves. And then as you go along the length of that stem, you add more branches, and each branch has more little raggedy leaves than the branch before it. Once you're happy with the shape of the fern, get rid of all your pencil marks, and then you can add just a little bit of line shading. I'm doing some messy lines at the base of each leaf just to give it a little life. Next, we'll do Lily of the Valley. So start with 3 stems, one in the center and then one curving off on each side, kind of reshaping mine a bit. And then along the length of each stem, you're just going to place a whole bunch of little circles or little bell shapes. They can be very loose, very messy, and tightly grouped together. We might add a little leaf in behind there, although you don't have to worry about that now. For now, let's go over all those little messy shapes with our Pigma Micron. You can see I'm using my guide, these messy bell shapes, and I'm kind of refining them a little by giving them a scalloped edge along the bottom. And this is, of course, the shape of our flowers. Lily of the Valley, like Snowdrops, is made up of these tiny little drooping, bright white blossoms. They're so pretty, and you just want to make sure you have a big messy group, really. Then you'll go over those stems that you had initially drawn in wherever you can see them. Just go over them in pen and add some little branches if you need to connect the flowers. Now let's get rid of all that pencil so you can really see your floral image. I might darken up those stems a tad, and then I'm going to use my pencil to add some big pointed oval shaped leaves in behind. You can do 1 or 2 or 3. They're just falling away from the flowers themselves. I'm going to do this big large one in behind. The key is just to do it in pencil first, make sure you're happy with it, and then go over it in pen. And then I am using pencil once again to just do some really thin curving lines to kind of add some shading to those leaves. The thing is, I've drawn the lines in the same direction or the same shape as the leaves, and that just allows me to darken those leaves without coloring them in completely, because that might be just a bit heavy. And then I'm adding just a hint of some little line shading on the tiny flowers. Okay, the last flower we'll draw together is the apple blossom. Now I do a circle to act as my guide, and then I do all these little circles in the center, and then I do a bunch of dots and lines around those circles, and that's my stamen. And then from there we need to put 5 petals, so use that circle as your guide so you know how long each petal should be. And they don't all have to be touching, they can be very perfectly imperfect. And we might add a few leaves. And then the thing about the apple blossoms is you want to add these buds. They have these big, fat, rounded buds, some with a bit of a heart shape almost. And then from there we keep adding a stem and more leaves. And you could go on and on like that, adding stems and adding leaves and adding buds and more blossoms. But for this one, we'll just do the one. So you do all those little circles in the center, and the circles are surrounded by lines and dots. It's that very delicate apple blossom stamen. And then we're going around these petals, keeping everything very perfectly imperfect. And from there, we will go over the buds. Don't make them too round or too smooth. And then same thing with the leaves. Just shake that pen a little bit. Make them a little bit wiggly, and they'll look more natural for it. And fill in all the buds. Some can be rounded, some can be heart-shaped. Then maybe finish up with just a little bit of line shading, and that's all that needs. Okay, with that done, I'm going to get rid of my pencil guide one last time, all those pencil marks. And yes, those are my spring flowers, some favorites of mine, the Delphinium and the Lily of the Valley. I'm going to give this little sketchbook practice piece a title right in the middle. If you do that, just make sure you do it in pencil first, just like everything else. And yes, I hope you'll watch this again, draw along with me. Definitely hit that subscribe button because there's always more content like this. And patrons of the channel, don't forget to go print your worksheet if you need a hand with these flowers. And for anyone else, if you'd like to get my YouTube channel bonus content, head over to Patreon and take a look. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you soon with a new tutorial.